finding great people to work with in the beginning, honest people, that's been a huge key to our success.
What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host,
Emmanuel Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's up, E?
My brother, good to see you. I love when we do just double shows. I just get in the mood. I've had my 2 or 3 espressos. So if I start jittering a little bit, it's all normal. But life is good, man. You know, I was talking to Tasha about this a couple of days ago. You know what's really funny? If you have a day that you're like, I'm having a hard time feeling grateful today. You know how rich you had to be 200 years ago to listen to music at home? Right? And I love music, right? I'm a junkie. I listen, the first thing I do when I wake up, I'm like, Alexa, play this, right? And I'm constantly, right? And I'm constantly music everywhere I go, listen to music all the time. If I walk around Home Depot, I have my AirPods and I'm always listening to music, right? You know how rich you had to be 200 years ago to have music playing at your house at any given point?
I don't even know.
Right? That's what I mean. I just assume that you had to be some kind of king or some kind of something to have a guy with a cello and a violin playing in your living room, right? And they probably knew that 2 or 3 songs that they knew.
Yeah.
I listen to all types of things. I listen to Italian music. I listen to French music. Wu-Tang sometimes, you know.
Throw a little Wu-Tang in there, why not?
Kind of varies, right? And I'm I don't know. So just the year is ending, and I think, it's important. We just passed Thanksgiving, which is one of my all-time favorite holidays, mostly for that, right? Just to be grateful, and there is so much to be grateful for. And I think sometimes as we're grinding, as you're building, you get wrapped up in the there's so much shit going on. So yeah, just a reminder, that everything you have it's good, and it's literally one of the best times to just be.
Yeah, I find I reflect on not forgetting why I started this whole thing, right? To spend more time with the family and be grateful and all that stuff. And it's easy to get sucked into the daily minutia of growth and all these good things. But it's dude, I would have killed to be in this position 5 years ago when I was sitting at a desk. So
you know what I mean? Keeping perspective and just reminding yourself to stay grateful. And sometimes, I have in my journal 3 things that you're grateful for. And sometimes maybe I'm the only one, but sometimes I'm I'm having a hard time. You know what I mean? I'm why? So much, right? This light right here. This computer, when I came from Italy 12 years ago, the only way to keep in touch with friends was emails. You didn't have Facebook, you didn't have messages, right? So there's so much to be grateful for. So yeah.
I love it, dude. I love it. Well, I'm excited for today's show too, because we've got a badass couple with us today. We've got Michael. Michael and Elizabeth Chang. They are the co-founders of TrustBNB Vacation Rentals. They are based in New York, and they own and operate a portfolio of short-term rentals in Philly and in the Smoky Mountains. And prior to building their own business, Michael was a New York City-based investment banker. He spent over a decade advising leading technology companies, private equity firms, family offices, venture capitalists. No big deal. Deep pockets. And he's advised and executed over $40 billion in transaction value. Then Elizabeth, who's we all know is the brains of the operation here from the design standpoint. She comes
Obviously.
from the luxury world, working at huge brands like Tiffany's and a whole bunch of amazing spots like that. So without further ado, guys, welcome to the show. Excited to have you here.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So again, I know I gave the Cliff Notes version, but I always like to kind of go back and just ask how did you guys get into this, right? Neither one of you came from a real estate background. So it was What triggered you to get into short-term rentals?
Uh, um, yeah, no, that's a great question. And I'll turn the floor over to Liz. It was her idea to start this business in 2017. We had just got married and we are figuring out, we are both working, but had an ideal state of how we wanted to live our lives. And she always had a passion about real estate. But I'll let you kind of tell the story of how we got started.
Yeah, sure, of course. And thanks for the great intro. Yeah, so just in summary, so I came from a luxury good background, spent about 8 years in fashion, luxury good industry, um, primarily in sales and merchandising, helping brands to opening new stores and expansion. So that it's like a high level of the background. But in 17, that's when I always wanted to have the side hustle, build a side income. And then the idea of real estate and building long-term wealth has always, been a goal for me. So heard about Airbnb in 2017 through reading, and then I was like, oh, what is this? Sounds interesting. And then our family actually had a vacancy at that time in one of the multi-family units. So I approached him and say, oh, can I rent this unit and then try Airbnb?
So what you say? What you said you approached him? Is you approached her dad because
Yeah,
our dad owned the building, and it was like we had a vacancy. Like, oh, why don't we try this 3-bedroom, 2-bath that will it work as an Airbnb? And we furnished it, and 2 months later, we're like, wow, okay, we need to quit our jobs because this is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So we kind of like pivot and focus
Yeah.
our energy there.
That's awesome. So
Wait, did you guys quit like right away? Like you were like, oh,
yeah, 2 months in?
we're out.
No,
Oh,
no,
I love it. Like burn the bridge. No.
no. I still need to collect my bonus. No, we started. So we went live that year. We had like 4 in that first year. So we're both still working, and obviously kind of hard to just kind of pull the record and leave. Um, but Liz left in late 17 or
Late
8?
17.
Late 17, and then she started focusing on building the business. And I left in early 2020. I had built something, yeah. So that's when we both like fully immersed in the Airbnb world.
Love it.
Amazing. So what does that conversation with your dad look like? We had another guest, Natalie, on here, and she was talking about how when she launched with her parents' unit, right? So what does that conversation look like? Because again, like you have different kind of parents. I know like my parents, I'm being very blessed, are super supportive. Some people don't have parents like that. So when they come up to you like, what are you gonna do with my place? You're like, we're gonna rent it, and then rent it to people we don't know online, and they're gonna come and like, and if there might like, like I know like my grandma thinks that all evil comes from the internet. Like I'm gonna rent your house, and the internet should be like, you're gonna let who in my house? So like, what did that look like? Also, because you guys had just got married, both had jobs, both had good jobs, right? So they're like, why do you want the side? Just do your job, or what did that look
Yeah.
like for you guys?
Yeah, so I think the conversation was actually went much better than I thought. But just a little background, we came from a very conservative, Asian culture family. So naturally, their first reaction is always like, "Oh, what is that? Never heard of this. What if people just ruin my place?" Because the last tenant, long-term tenant, actually that left our lived there for 8 years, and then they left our place in a very undesirable state. So he was traumatized by that already. But for me to propose this idea, I kind of give him a plan. So this is what I'm going to do. I will take great care of it. I will pay you rent on time. Just give me a chance. And that actually worked out really well because the place is, as we know, short-term rental need to be turned all the time and actually keep the place in the pristine state all the time. So that kind of just like kick off pretty well the conversation with my dad, given the conservative background.
That's awesome. And so that was your very first unit. So by the end of 2017, when you, Liz, were able to retire technically from your job,
A little
units?
far.
4 units or 5? 4.
I would say four.
4. And were they all arbitrage?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. And so what happened? So that was 2017. COVID happened and everything else. So walk us through how you guys got to where you are now, and then how did you get to the Smokies? In the Smokies, right? You guys are in the Smokies.
Yeah, we're in Smokies too. Yeah, so we as after Liz retired, I retired for a real job and then got her now 24/7 self-employment job.
Yeah.
We grew to about 40 units in New York City, and New York and New Jersey. They're kind of right next to each other.
Yeah.
And COVID hit, unfortunately. Unfortunately, travel shut down. We had to reposition those units. Some we gave back to the landlords, and then rented long term, and some we did kind of midterm rentals. But we had a presence in Philadelphia. We only had a few units there. We had 3 there at the time, and those recovered. Excuse me, we had 5 there at the time, and those recovered really quickly. And we're like, oh wow, okay, so there's an opportunity here in Philadelphia. So that's where we doubled down in early 2020, and now we have 20 units there. We're in negotiations for 14 more, and we were able to take that. And obviously, there was like a really big travel boom, as we all know, in COVID, and we wanted to reinvest that money that we were earning from the from before the New York properties and the Philadelphia properties into assets that we actually own. And Smokies, I'll turn it over to Liz. Actually, she's the one that found the Smoky Mountains market through her research, and there we just like, okay, this is great. We bought one. We're like, wow, like these are insane returns, and we're getting capital appreciation, and we're getting the tax deductions. So we need to double down here. And so we bought 6 over the last. We bought about $7 million of real estate, bought 6 properties over the last 2.5 years.
Wow.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. You guys have been
That's
busy.
great.
I love that. Like, it's been,
And we had a kid, and she's turning a 1-year-old tomorrow too. So there's that.
Yeah. Why not? Because
why not? Why not?
Yeah.
So
What else are you guys supposed to do?
I love that.
Amazing.
And so, one of the things I want to kind of dive into, and we've talked about this with other guests, but I think that a lot of people struggle with the idea of like investing remotely, right, in other destinations, right? And it's like, oh, I live in New York, so I got to find something in like upstate or Long Island or Jersey or somewhere to buy, instead of like, oh, well, why don't I just invest in the Smokies or wherever, right? So like, how did that conversation go, and kind of like how are you guys handling that now? Like 2 different markets.
Yeah, and we had that. So we, like others, started literally in our backyard, right? We started at her one of her dad's properties here in New York City. But once we realized that, well, we were working, so we couldn't actually always be there. And I always had the mindset that if we're going to build this as a business, like we can't do everything, right? We have to be able to build systems and processes and trust others that trust others, like trust the housekeeper, the runners, the handyman. They will actually kind of do the work without us actually being physically present. And I think we always kind of built the company on that mindset, so that when we were in Philadelphia, and obviously it's like an hour and a half away drive, we could be there, but in 3 years we probably made 1 emergency trip down there. And obviously Tennessee is 10 hours away. But I think having that mindset very early on, that this is a business that we're building, it needs to have processes. We're not going to be working in the business. We're going to be working on the business. That was, that mental, framework that we had, and all the decisions kind of drove through that framework.
So what does the team look like? So are you guys doing the back of the house, and you already mentioned you have cleaners, runners. So walk us through what your roster looks like.
Oh, this is probably like my favorite topic. I'm really,
Yeah,
I'm like
it's
really.
so funny. If you guys watch this on YouTube, you can see how excited he got the moment I asked the question. Like, look at his smile. Look how excited he is.
No, I'm super proud of our team. Like we built a really amazing team, and we kind of built it. So in Philadelphia, we have a couple. They're like our day ones. Like we kind of started together there. They were a boyfriend girlfriend. Now they're married. They basically built a cleaning business with our staff. So we have cleaners in this in Philadelphia, runners, handymen that are within the building. In Tennessee, we have one woman that we work with. She basically is our property manager there. She cleans, she handles the handyman, like she does everything. So really finding great staff on the ground in the beginning like really invest in that in the beginning. And again, I that's credit to Liz. She's the one that found David Tanisha in Tennessee. In Philadelphia. Finding great people to work with in the beginning, honest people, like that was really the key to this. That's the key. That's been a huge key to our success. One person the entire time, and they just grew with us. So they're invested in our business as well. On the back end, we have 6 VAs actually for a small portfolio. But again, we built the business in a way that we want to have enough, there's going to be enough margin in the business so we can support a real staff, that we are not the ones doing any of the day-to-day work. Like we look at the reports, we look at the accounting, we focus on growth. We have, 3 VAs that cover, morning shift, night shift, weekend shift. We have a bookkeeper, and we have someone focused on outreach and growth. So, and then we have one other kind of part-time floater. So that is our team. So 6 people, background, overseas, 2 teams on the ground in Philadelphia and Tennessee that really drive everything. And then they all work together seamlessly through Discord and WhatsApp and Slack. And we monitor, we get the reports, we monitor it, and we approve payments, and we try to grow the business. That's our strategy.
I love that. What does that guy, so you said one is outreach and growth. Who is that guy? What does he do? Like, what's
it's a woman actually.
Okay.
And
Obviously, my bad. Yeah.
All she does is she focuses on outreach to, we have areas and buildings that we focus on, and she focuses, like, we have a script and materials, and she has a process that she does every day to outreach to new owners, to buildings. We try to buy, one other thing is we bought, outside of our first property, we bought everything off MLS. So everything is off market. We do not, we'd be in a different position right now. We're competing people on MLS in 2021 because the pricing was, and the competition was just really bad. So we source everything off market. And that's something that we really learned is another key driver to success is, if you're just on MLS competing with everyone else buying, like that is, it's a poor competitive position to be in.
Love it. So you're feeding that particular VA a list of leads, and then they've got a script they follow to outbound dial, and I'm assuming it's like distressed sellers and all the different categories that they can go through that you send them.
It's actually not distressed sellers. It's actually sellers that are like absentee sellers.
Yeah.
They're mostly, older, they've owned for a while, they have a lot of equity value in there. But their cash on cash is pretty low because they don't know how to operate it like we do. So we come in with that management background that we've sharpened in our urban markets and being able to export that model into the Smokies, right? Where we have a more modern technology. Our revenue management is, I think, above class. We have our own revenue manager in-house as well, since we have enough scale now. So, we just develop these systems where I think, we operate at a higher level, higher revenue, higher margins, so that we can support and we can generate more cash flow from these properties and support the kind of business that we want to build.
Love that.
And something to kind of add on that is like the philosophy when we operating and acquire properties, we always try to focus on quality over quantity. I think that's really important for us. We look at our lifestyle and then look at what's our goal as a married couple with kids. And then really...
Kids? Really? Surprise?
Just one, sorry.
Oh,
kid.
I was like, oh, what? Like, what? This is the first time on the show.
I feel so special that announcement came on our podcast.
Whoa.
Oh my,
Imagine.
surprise.
Okay.
And then really kind of like frame our portfolio growth around that goal. So I think quality over quantity for us is really critical key for our expansion.
Yeah, well, like we won't take units that are, we get offered units all the time, but if they don't hit a certain threshold for us, like we're not going to take them. Like we're not going to take small units that are like smart work. It just doesn't fit the frameworks that we have on how we want to grow our business.
No, and I think that's evident with you guys, and I think that's part of the reason why you guys have been able to be so explosive in your growth. Is one, you can clearly tell that you guys have had a lot of conversations about what you're creating, and 2 is really having a dialed in system. Because again, like I don't have 6 VAs, right? But then again, I have a lot more hands-on time. I know Mike is more in your guys' kind of world with the 6 probably more VAs now. And it's a different business, but it's a feasible business as long as you have a clear idea. And that's where quantity really comes in, right? Because you can have a ton of properties that don't make you money. And then that's hard for you to sustain a whole entourage worth of people. Versus you guys have been super super purposeful. You know what I mean? With like, this is what we want. This is the life we want for the kid, soon to be kids, right? And we'll see how that's gonna grow, right? But we need all these people because we don't want to work like this. We want to have time for each other and time to grow and time to be in our power. And that's so evident and such a beautiful thing to see in couple and then business partners, in a way that like you've created a business that you both get to, not anything falls too much on one person, or at least that's what it seems like coming across. It's like a team that decides together, that has support around them, and really is able to grow.
Could I ask a clarifying question for the VAs that doing the outreach for the call it business development? Is that primarily for you guys to purchase, or is that also for arbitrage or co-host, or are you is there a certain thing that you guys are focusing on now?
Right now, we're focused more on arbitrage. They were focused on buying before, but given the market environment and given that we've already bought, just to backtrack a little bit, our strategy is really focused on. Our strategy is focused on maximizing after-tax free cash flow. So people talk about revenue and doors. That's all great. What we care about is how much cash do we get to keep at the end of the year on April 16th? How much money do I have? How much do I, after the IRS takes their cut, right? So that's how we think about the business. And that's why we combine both strategies, arbitrage and buying, because I can take all that arbitrage income that we're earning, reinvest that into buying properties, bonus depreciate all of that through cost segregation. And I basically protect all my income. I deferred all that federal tax liability to when I sell the property. Oh, and I'm not paying self-employment tax because this is rental income. So not only am I deferring federal income tax, I'm also not paying self-employment tax. That is very powerful. That is how we maximize after-tax free cash flow. So when we forecast how we're going to grow in a year, we're like, okay, we're going to make X amount of money. We need to buy Y amount of properties in order to protect that cash flow from the federal government. So that's how so I just want to give a framework of, so we really operate on frameworks, right? Like, we want to do this. This is how we get there. How do we execute against that? So right now we're kind of capped out, and we're gonna know what we need to buy next year. So and then we think that arbitrage market actually has more opportunity because rents are coming down, people are scared. Other kind of market developments. A lot of the big VC players have really pulled back because they can't get cheap funding like they used to do when the Fed was, when rates were very, very low. So we are doubling down on that strategy right now, building up that cash flow so that we can go and buy more. But ultimately, the strategy is buying property that in vacation rental areas. Mike, we would love to be in luxury, Disney World too, by the way.
Love that.
I'm going to plant that seed. That's your next market.
Yeah, I know. But Smokies is still, we know it, we love it. But that is the crux of what we wanted to achieve. So I know long-winded answer to your question, but I wanted to kind of lay.
No, that's great. I just wanted to clarify that because you guys are definitely super strategic. And then I guess to just give some super tactical advice for people. So like, he talks a lot about this too, is like creating like your buy box, and TJ he likes to use that term. So like for you guys on like an arbitrage deal, like I always tell people, if I'm going to buy something, I need at least a 25% cash on cash. If I'm putting my money into something, it's got to be at least 25%. So I'm curious for you guys, like what are some of your parameters that you use to help guide that lead flow through your VA so that when you guys are getting presented opportunities, it's within your buy box or your rent box?
Both. Yeah, exactly. Talk about both. Talk about your buy box and your buy box.
Sure. Arbitrage, without giving too many secrets until we talk next, Mike, is we prefer larger units, so 2 bedrooms plus. They need to have parking in urban. They need to have parking And we prefer urban markets that have multiple sources of demand, right? Like Philadelphia that has business, sports, government, education, medical, right? So those are markets that we like. So Philadelphia, obviously, we like. For there, our projected margin has to be 30%. Cash on cash has to be 30% above. Plus, the payback period has to be 6 months or less. That's really important, right? You can earn a lot, but if if all your capital is still tied up there after a year and a half, you actually haven't made any money. You're just earning back the money that you put in. So
Yeah.
I think that's a point that people don't think about as much. But it's critical.
While you're still on this topic, what goes into your payback period? So what's included in that number?
So payback period is effectively all the cash that you lay out.
Everything.
Right? So everything
in the first and last, everything you guys put it, like any
security deposit, everything. Because I mean, it's a more conservative approach because technically you will get that cash back, but like once it's out the door, like landlords hold that money for you.
Carry on top at the end when you guys decide to leave. If you don't,
and who knows? They'll dig you for every little drywall hole, right? So who knows, right? So it's every dollar goes out the door divided by your projected monthly profit. Sorry, excuse me. Let me take a step back. All the cash that goes out the door, less the dollar value of the concessions that you get, divided by that sum divided by the monthly projected profit, and that equals a number. And if that's 6 or greater, then if it's 6, it was like 6.5. We're not gonna be like no, so you have to obviously evaluate each deal on its own. And on buying, so on that, and on buying, we like vacation rental markets that have a long history. Again, that proven, and proven regulatory environment, right? We don't want to buy something there that, like the Poconos, for example, right now, a lot of the rule changes there. A lot of people are kind of upside down right now because things haven't worked out as well as they projected initially. But we still look at 25% is the minimum return hurdle that we look at.
So if I'm doing the math right, I like that metric on the arbitrage side of like, all right, we got to basically get our money out within 6 months. If I'm doing the math right, technically that's like a 200% cash on cash return annually, right? If I'm thinking about that, like if I'm going to get all my money back within 6 months, that means I would double my money in 12 months, right? It's basically 200. If I'm following you correctly.
It's depending on how you're right. Just depending on how you look at it. You can also look at it as an infinite return, right? Since I got all my money back, I don't have any more capital tied up in there too.
Yeah.
We want to minimize that. We always want to de-risk. We always look at this as like a risk game, right? Versus, people that are out there like, hey, I have like 400 units. Like, great. What's actually your profitability? And what do you actually own? If you own 400 arbitrage units, let me ask you a quick question. What do you actually own?
You own a shitload of furniture.
You own a shitload of furniture that is 10 cents to 50 cents on the dollar.
Yep.
If it's not being used in arbitrage unit. Oh, and also you have a huge amount of lease liability. So, and most leases are not assignable or transferable. We don't get too deep. So they're not portable. So you can't sell it without their permission. And they have you by they really control you because they know you have all your investments in that building. So not really a position that we want to be in, just and I think that comes from the business background that I have. Like you want to kind of think ahead, right? Like who has the leverage, especially when it comes to renewal time.
No, that's big merger acquisition kind of mindset about like, okay, like what's actual like value here and what's not.
What's value?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't think people know this, but there has been no arbitrage company has been bought since 2019. And there's a broker that does a lot of this STR stuff. There's been no arbitrage M&A since 2019, and that was a distressed deal in Chicago. So people that are thinking they're going to sell their arbitrage company, we haven't heard it. We haven't heard it. We bought distressed furniture from people that have gone belly up, but that's not really that's kind of liquidation sales. So we think that the value in this strategy is owning property, reinvesting that arbitrage income into stuff that you own, and then you get the equity appreciation, you get the tax benefits.
Yeah, we've been saying that since the beginning, right? Of like, we did it through co-hosting, but I was like, this was a means, one, to get me out of my job faster because I didn't have enough cash to do it. And then two, once you rinse and repeat that enough and build up your cash flow, now I just buy stuff, right? And I don't really take too many co-hosting deals anymore, unless it's like lights out. But I'm glad I wanted to bring that up because again, like I feel like we think very similar. So like the idea of getting a payback within 6 months, I love that. So like that would be a key metric for me because I see a lot of people, they're like calculating returns and I'm like, yes, but you have a 12-month lease. If they don't renew your lease and you're not getting all your money out for like 18 months, there's a margin of error there that I do not like at all. Like I don't like that, right? So
and in our experience, like leases generally last 3 years. Like we have a, we talk to all of our colleagues and, things happen, right? Like you might have a bad guest. There might be issues with the neighbors. Like you don't know. So if you're projecting a 12-month return, basically you worked the first year for free. You've done all that work for nothing because you have any. Well, you own furniture, like you own some TVs and beds that actually are liabilities because to get them out, it costs you money to get them out. And then you have to bank on that second, third year to really make your money back. So, I think so that's why again that's kind of why we built the business this way. We have longer leases. There's ways to structure leases. We have options, we have performance guarantees, things like that allow us to elongate those leases as we need to, but also have outs when things change that we can leave. We pre-wire those things so that when things happen, we're not stuck with something that we can't use in our business. Like that's always the mindset. So this is always thinking about there's upside, but also if things don't work out, how do we manage that and not be in a situation where you haven't thought about it and it happens. You're like, oh my God, what do I do now? Like, that's not a position that we want to be in. I think that's a function of like, one, being married, two, being slightly older, like see more stuff. And like, we can't just, we messed up. So let's start over again. Like, it's a hard conversation to have with our 1-year-old daughter. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. All right. We got to sell your crib. Like, let's go. But I actually have so enjoyed this conversation because I think this has been the more real arbitrage conversation that we've ever had, right? Of like, this is a real conversation about the things that you should consider going to arbitrage. And it is the lowest hanging fruit. But it's the same thing that I tell people that want to be wholesalers. Wholesaling is a great thing to get started. It's very, very difficult. And you have to be very, very smart how to do it and really have super well dialed in systems because you make money on how good your systems are. And that not having wishful thinking, what my father calls wishful thinking, is what you're talking about, right? Like you can't just wishfully think that everything is going to go perfectly well the way you need it to. Instead, you should actually probably think worst case scenario at all times. Can I get my money back in 6 months? What if the guys kick me out in 4 months? What do I do now, right? We have somebody ask a question. Can you talk about what you mean when you say performance guarantees in the lease?
What I mean by that is if we do X, like if we say that we're going to, so for example, if all of our rent payments are paid 12 months on time, we get part of the security deposit back as a rent credit in month 13. That's an example. We have other examples too. Can't share all my secrets.
No, that's fine. That's a good one, and I think that gives a good idea of like what. Like
if you, it usually and it works is like if you're just getting started. Like I don't like. We think arbitrage is a very, very good strategy. Definitely, like it is something people should definitely do.
100%.
It's just not an ends to it. It's a means to an end. If that makes sense. Like it's part of a broader strategy. It's not grow for the sake of growing because there's no exit.
Yeah.
There's no value at that exit, right? And also just another point, like people are once you get on that hamster wheel of arbitrage, if your landlord offers you units, you feel compelled to take it because one, you don't want competitors coming in. Two, you don't want your landlord to feel like, oh, well, maybe they're not doing it so hot. So you're always on that capital treadmill where you don't have any money in your bank account because like it's $10,000 every 2-bedroom that you're, and 10 units is $100,000. 100 units is $1 million of cash that goes out the door. So just, so we look at these things and we want to be we want to be very purposeful in how we think about this business, and not be sucked into, growth for the sake of growth, right? We care about building, like we want to acquire assets that generate cash flow for us.
Yeah.
Like that is like cash flow that we take home, not just like a phantom number on QuickBooks. But I'll turn it to Liz if you have
Not just like a short. I want to add something. Just as a STR owner, business owner, I think it's important to integrate all three, understand all three strategy: co-hosting, arbitrage, and also buy and self-manage. Really understand the three and be versatile and flexible with them, because there are different time at the market cycle or different time of your life. One strategy will fit better than the other. And if you can really understand how to combine them efficiently, it really is a really powerful way to get to long-term wealth at a much shorter timeline. You get cash flow through co-hosting and arbitrage much quicker, and take that and to build long-term wealth through buying.
We've co-hosted too. We have friends in New York that have multi-million-dollar penthouses that wanted us to rent it out for them. We've done that a little bit too. So, but I mean, again, just like we've done everything, and I think to just put a finer point on Liz's point is, this is the long-term game, right? This isn't just about like, hey, I want to get rich, I want to make $1 million like in 2 years, and then that's it. Like this is like, we want to build something that we can pass on to our kids, right? This business supports our family. Like we retired our parents on this business. Like that is the mindset what we have, and that's why we want to share this message out there, because we see in the market there's a lot of different messaging out there, but not people that are looking more long term. So we think that this is something that people should know, because we think it's really important for them, especially as we roll into 2023, where there's a lot more economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
I want to.
Sorry, go Mike.
I was just gonna say, to kind of put a bow on all this and kind of start to wrap things up, and then I'll let E ask his question. Is like, for you guys now, kind of tying into what you're talking about, what's kind of the next thing for you? Like what's your vision for the next 12, 24 months for TrustBNB, and where you guys are looking right now?
So we have a plan on how many units we want to grow on the arbitrage side, and we are going to buy. So if we grow to say 20 more units on the arbitrage side, we will buy X amount of property to protect that cash flow from taxation. So that is next 12-month plan. Very simple.
I guess what I'm getting at, are you expanding to different markets now, or are you kind of just keeping those two main hubs, you think, for you guys?
We're likely to keep the two main hubs. So we really believe that it is very difficult to operate in multiple markets at a very high level. It takes a lot of time to learn a market, to build real infrastructure, to have real people there that work for you, with you, care about your properties, right? And to do that in a different market and spin something up, it takes real time to do that. So why not focus on, be purposeful, find a great market that you can really grow in, right? So we're going to leverage all that work that we've done in the last 3 years in Philadelphia and Tennessee and grow there, because we know the market's the best there. We know what we know. We built a mousetrap that we know works. So let's find areas within that to grow, instead of building a new mousetrap in a new location that we don't really know anything about, and then have all that uncertainty. That just doesn't make much sense for us. So we
I've loved you guys. Like, this is such a great advice, because I think, again, what you said, right? There's a lot of misinformation in the marketplace, and there's a lot of people that go out there and it's like, it's so easy. Look at me. I just order stuff on Amazon and send it over to this property, and then find somebody on Thumbtack and hire them to do the thing. And they don't talk about the fact that, like, half of these people are not good. Half of the people don't know how to put the furniture together. Half of the clears that you find are not great. And again, it's just like, is it simple? Yes. It can be done? Yes. Should you do it? Maybe. Are you like married, have kids? Should you be doing that considering everything that you have already on your plate? No. Versus just trust your process, trust the systems you have, trust your team, and stay super focused, which is something that I've always done. Stay super focused on your one market, and understand that you can become a king of a small swamp. You're going to be a lot richer than the guy that just keeps hopping between little rain puddles everywhere. thinking he's gonna get to the big lake and never goes anywhere. And he's just exhausted and wet everywhere he goes. And he's just like jumping between things. And you're just like, just keep focused. Like just stay focused on stuff.
It's that shiny object syndrome. We definitely suffer from that too. But just like, everything sounds really cool.
Yeah.
But
we're all monkeys, at the end of the day. So we all like see something, we're like, ooh, nice. Let me go look at that. You know what I mean? Until you learn this, like some stuff just looks shiny, but it doesn't taste good, doesn't feel good, doesn't do anything but shine.
So yeah, I think like really niche down and really build the local knowledge and then your network locally too. The more network you have, the longer you're in the market, the network expands, and that served us so well over the last couple of years. And I think people undervalue that. They don't realize, every market sounds great, but what's the best is where you know the best, where you have the most connection of people and network.
It's not the grade. It's not the A+ grade on AirDNA. It's what that's like the average. That doesn't really mean a whole heck of a lot. Candidly, it's what you can deliver and execute. That is where that market grade. That is the quality of the market. It's the quality of your business within that. So do the work up front. Right? Find the right market so that you're not hopping around, to your point, like hopping around different lily pads. Like find a great place to grow and like just focus on that.
I literally
easier.
I kicked off the last podcast and I literally said like your network is like your cheat code. So like if you focus on building a strong network, it's literally the cheat code. Because it's like, I don't have to go figure it out. I'm like, I've already got somebody over here that can, this cleaner didn't work out. Oh, well, I'm just going to go back to my contract and be like, hey, you got anybody else that you think is going to be a good cleaner? Yeah. Like this person's been crushing it over here. Like, okay, bring. Like it's a cheat code. So I love that. I love that. So before we get into the last question, I want to say this was an awesome convo. Totally vibing with you guys. Love the convo. So thank you guys for coming on. And thank you for sharing some of your strategies and just like the pros and cons, right? And just the things for people to think through as they're either starting or building this business. And, it echoes a lot of things that E and I have talked about over the years around like, just put a plan together and work the plan, right? As he always says, it's like, you got to think through it a little bit more, think with the end in mind. So really appreciated that. So before we get into the last question, where can folks learn more about you and TrustBNB and all the good stuff that you guys got going on?
We're on Instagram. You can find us at Michael Chang BNB, MICHAEL CHANG BNB on Instagram. That's where we post our thoughts, and that's how you can reach us through DM. So find us there, and we look forward to talking with you.
Yeah, I just followed you guys.
Awesome, love it. And the last question we ask all of our guests is, what is your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
Number one secret to success for short-term rental.
100%.
Have a lid in your life.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Yeah, but I think it's
easy for me.
What we touched on earlier is really have the end goal in mind and then come up with a plan and execute against it. And rather than, I think a lot of people are growing for the sake of growing, or just like, I just want to get started, but they don't really they don't really know where they're going for the end, right? So I think be purposeful, be mindful with intention on your goal is the best thing you can do when you grow your STR portfolio, at least for me.
And it's the easiest way because you have a North Star that you're guiding yourself to. So all your decisions can, you have a grounding in all your decisions, that you're not just making decisions based on a whim, right? Like there's a goal that you're driving towards. And that for us has been a huge driver to our success. And having a partner, having, a business partner, whether it's your spouse or someone else, someone that you trust, like, and that you believe in and that you can work with effectively, like being able to work together effectively, obviously has really helped accelerate our progress. So I'm very, Liz is my secret weapon to STRs because she got me in. So
I love it. I love it. Well, again, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Truly appreciate it. Really enjoyed our convo, and looking forward to following you guys as you continue to grow and build your empire.
We'll see you we'll see you in Nashville in March.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Can't wait. Can't wait. Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for all the listeners out there. Thank you guys. Have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.